to, as featured in the Author's Corner. My name is Marissa Bloedoorn, Own It Magazine's editor-in-chief, and I am your host. I have taken center stage in Owning It with me today, award-winning, recognized as top 50 fearless leaders, and awarded top nurse practitioner of the year by IAOTP, and we're going to ask her exactly what that means. And she is the author of the book, Heal Your Heart from Within, and she is one of Own It's contributing writers. Welcome to Take Center Stage and Own It with me, Teresa Palmer. She is a holistic cardiology nurse, and we are so excited to have her back here with me again to continue this conversation. So take us center stage and owning it, Teresa Palmer. Hey! We are. Yes, it is good to be back. So excited. I'm praying that the people are blessed with this session because the last conversation we had was truly intense and it was a wealth of information and knowledge on the truth about self-healing. So we want to continue that conversation. And I believe we left off with not running from the challenge and allowing yourself to go through the process. And I think you said one of your mentors or advisors said, sometimes we got to stay in the oven until we're fully baked.
Right.
And that's completing the process, right? And being stretched and instead of fighting and being developed in the process. So continue to share why that's so important, staying in the oven until you're fully baked, and how it has an impact on how our immune system, how we really are able to preserve our bodies rather than putting them into attack mode.
Right. It's so important that we really need to deal with things regardless of how long it takes. And we're kind of in a society where we want instant gratification. So we don't like to feel things. And I could tell you in my cardiology practice over the years, I've had so many people that experience an emotion that isn't a good emotion. Like either they lose a job, maybe they're grieving, and right away they don't want to go through it. They want a pill. And I can't tell you how many people ask for things for anxiety, for depression, simply because they don't want to feel the feeling. And one of the things that medication does have its place. I'm certainly not against medication. It has its place, but sometimes it just numbs you. And if it just numbs you, you don't have a chance to really feel it and go through it. Nobody expects you. And I would always tell my patients, you lost a pet. I don't expect you to be happy about it. If you came in here and didn't care, I would be concerned. But you're concerned, you're grieving, you're upset, and that's what it should be. We don't have to feel good all the time. And that's the hardest thing for people because we come from a society that tells us that we have to feel good. Society doesn't relish the fact that somebody may be sad. If you're upset and you cry about something, that's not always welcome. We're always told to mask, be brave, to look like you're in control of everything. Well, sometimes you're just not. And when we don't acknowledge our feelings, we could never get past it. Not only do you have to sit in the oven until you're fully baked, you have to do that to come out the other side. And that's probably one of the hardest concepts to get through to people is that sometimes you have to feel bad in order to feel good. And things don't always work out for us, but that doesn't mean that we ignore it. It means that we have to really sit through it. And it's even the same thing like supposing that you have a problem, you're getting fired from jobs. Maybe you need to look at that and find out what's really happening. Are you acting a certain way at a job? Are you not happy with what you're doing, which then comes across, even subconsciously, because we're vibratory, we're energy. So even though you may be telling yourself in your head, I love this job, I love this job, I love being here, that's not necessarily so. And the vibration and energy you may be putting out is that I don't want to be here. And
Mm-hmm.
then the universe responds to that by kicking you out of it. It may also mean that you're ready for something else, but you're afraid to let go.
Yeah.
So, we have to pay attention to what's going on. Why are things happening and why are you feeling this way? If it's a loss, a significant loss, then okay, you know what the problem is, or what the feeling is. I shouldn't say it's a problem. And you just have to take the time, regardless of how long it takes, to go through it and to honor yourself and to recognize what is happening and say to yourself, it's okay to be this way. To forgive yourself many times for not conforming to what society says that you have to do.
Yeah, because we tapped in on that the last session about how when you decide to change, the world system around you is used to you showing up a certain way, and you're disrupting the system when you decide to make a change. And when there's a disruption of the system, there's a fight to say keep the system regulated. So you have to want what you want so much that I always say your why must make you high, right? Because you are, when that's the case, when you're that connected to your why, you will do what it takes to transform it. I had someone say to me a couple of weeks ago, you feel awkward, and I was like, no, I don't feel awkward. You know why I don't feel awkward? It's because I'm okay with being uncomfortable. So it's not awkward to me to be uncomfortable. It's normal. It's normal when you're getting to know someone. It's normal when you're in a setting to feel a little diseased because you're in a setting with people you don't know. If you normalize that that's normal for you to feel that way, then it's not an awkward feeling. It's normal. It's normal. And what I have to do in order for me to change that is to now speak to some people, say hello to them, get to know them. What is the next step in normalizing that experience? The next step is you get to know people, and then that dissolves that feeling of being it being new to you. It's not awkward, it's just new to you. And if
Yeah.
you change that perception of it, I can go into a room and I don't have to know anybody. And sometimes I don't even want to know anybody. How about that? And it's okay for me to come into the room, or okay for anyone to come into a room, hang out there for a little while, see what's going on, see if you like what's going on, see if you want to enter into what's going on, or you want to stay on the outside. It's your choice. But you do not have to feel uncomfortable at all with that experience. But
Right.
you got to start doing it. You got to start doing it, because when you're in this atmosphere, just like you said, the adrenaline starts going. The nervousness in your system starts going, and that's when you start feeling nauseated or you start feeling uncomfortable in your gut area. That's your nerves, and you're kicking them off. But when you make the decision and when you start entering those situations on a regular basis and start overcoming them, you normalize them, and so they don't have the same effect on you. You talked about job, and they say fake it till you make it. Sometimes that's good, and then sometimes you need to vacate it instead of faking it, right? Because there's times when, and it does show up in your performance. So if you're there and it's not a fit for you, it's showing up in your performance because you're not wired or designed to be in that position or in that job. And it's okay to be a filler of space and time and need, but there has to be a point where you have a strategy or a plan that's going to take you out of a position that you're not wired for and get you set yourself into a position which you are wired for so that you can show up. And that's job satisfaction. When we're not happy with our jobs, I don't care what you're doing, your performance is being hindered. It's being impacted adversely because you don't want to be there. And that's going to show up in no matter what you do. That's why they say always do what you love what you do, and do what you love to do. Because then you're going to tap into and unleash all your unlimited potential because you're going to love it. And like we were sharing off screen was, this is fun and we're helping people. because we are where we were designed to be. And then that also helps with our health too, because then we're happy. Because sad feelings harbor regret, harbor bitterness, harbor unforgiveness. You get mad, you
Anger.
get angry,
Yeah.
right? And there's those feelings that begin to come up. And that's why it's so important for you to know who you are, know what you're about, know what you're made of, know what makes you tick and ticks you off. What are your triggers? What are the things that you like? And that means that you have to do what? You got to spend some time with yourself. And you got to really, really begin to know yourself and know what you like and know what you don't like. And too often, in what you said in our society, is that we avoid that. We always want to have something or someone or people around us, and we fail viciously to get to know ourselves and to really like ourselves, right?
Yeah.
To really, really like.
Yeah, it's so important. It really, everything that you're saying is so important. And what you said about even difficult situations, like you, I'm a Toastmaster and I'm a distinguished Toastmaster. I've been a Toastmaster probably about 17 years and I know how to speak. Well, I joined a French speaking Toastmasters club because I want to improve my French. Well, it was so difficult for me to give my first little speech. I mean, you're talking about 4 minutes, but in my head, I kept saying to myself, "Oh, everybody else speaks French much better than me. I don't have a good accent. What if I mistake the grammar? What if I do this?" It was the worst speech that I had ever given simply because I was so worried about it. I had a choice after that. Said, you know what? I could hide and say, well, I'm just not good. When they have once a month, they have an English speaking Toastmasters. I'll just speak then. I'll speak in English. I know what I'm talking about. I can be good. Or I could challenge myself. And what I'm doing is actually challenging myself, being uncomfortable, knowing that I'm going to be uncomfortable, knowing that I may even screw up. And that's okay because I want to improve my French. And if other people think my speech is horrible or whatever, I don't care because I'm there to do something for me and I'm developing the self confidence to go in there and say, I don't care what I sound like. You
Mhm.
know, if somebody in the audience that speaks fluent French doesn't like it, I don't care. What difference does it make? I'm
Mhm.
doing this for me, and this is something that I want to accomplish. And I don't care if other people even don't understand it. You know, a fellow Toastmaster friend of mine from an English club said, why would you subject yourself to all that anxiety and all? You know, when you could just speak in an English club and give a good speech and do contests. Why are you putting yourself through this? And I said, because I want to. And she just kind of looked at me because I'm not successful at it. It may take me years to be
Mhm.
successful as a French Toastmaster and not have the recognition that I do when I go to the English Toastmaster clubs. But that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's a part of growth that I want to do. And that again is our self awareness and our confidence. We don't always have to have self confidence to do something. Self confidence is a process. And
Yeah.
until you get step out there, it's like learning how to swim. If you don't get in the water, you're never going to learn how to swim. If you
No.
stay on the side of the pool or on the side of the ocean, you know, on the shore, you're never going to get in that water. And if you don't get in that water, you're not going to know if you could succeed or not.
Yeah, and confidence is built through experience. It's not said and then done. It's built through experience. It's built through getting back up. It's self-confidence, the defiance in self-confidence, the boldness, the tenacity, the audacity of self-confidence comes from falling down, being embarrassed, getting back up, dusting yourself up, and no longer being concerned about what other people think about you, but more important about the goal that you set and achieving it and mastering the experience. That's what gives you self confidence. That's what gives you confidence to walk in a room and not be concerned about what other people think. It frees you of being perfect, trying to strive for perfection, and causing all of that internal anxiety. So people who become complacent, they're not happy. They're not happy because they've not maximized, they're not living a fulfilling life. They're living a safe life. And when you live a safe life, you take away from the fulfillment. You also do adverse on your own physical body, right? Because we see that when you're not living a fulfilling life, that's still, it may not be as obvious, but it's still evident that your body is not responding to life as it should. It's not living, it's existing. And the vibrancy of life comes when we challenge it, when we stretch it, and when we maximize, not, not become overachievers, but when we maximize who we were meant to be. That's all this is really being. And for some people, it's varying levels. Some people, it's just meant to be just, hey, they're cool with hanging out. It's they're laid back and whatever. And then there are those people who want more, who desire to stretch themselves. How do you think there are people who speak multiple languages? There was a time in which they felt exactly how you felt, like, oh my God. But if they let that happen, they wouldn't be able to speak five different languages. And I believe that many of us have that ability, if we are introduced to it, if we're exposed to different things. So I want to digress back into, these are all matters of the heart. These are all matters of the heart, right? And I love how you said in our last session, our heart has a brain. And so I want to dive back into that. Talk to us about the heart having this brain, because some of what we desire to do is not all here. It's actually driven from here, right?
Right.
So
Right. It's really comes from the heart. And what happens after a while is you could actually sync your heart with your brain. And by that, I mean
mm,
accessing the higher intelligence of the brain, not this reptilian lower part of the brain that just makes us freeze or makes us run or makes us, do whatever. So the heart really does have a brain. And I think it was probably back in about 2010. I used to do a radio program, and I was mentored by Armand DeMille of the Positive Mind on WBAI radio in New York. And I approached him at the time in cardiology. I was seeing a lot of broken heart syndrome, which really, I'm not going to go into it a lot, but your any type of too much stress can actually cause a huge problem with your heart. It could actually cause your heart to stop and mimic a heart attack, but it's not a heart attack. There's really no damage done to your heart, but it's kind of it's a stress response of the heart. So when I had mentioned this to him, we wanted to talk about the heart having a brain. And he was a very analytical person that when I said you could think with your heart and hold emotions, he was very brain oriented. He was a neuro psychologist. So he was everything having to do with the brain. So when you think with your heart, as I said in the first episode, your heart has its same neuroreceptors. In fact, it has more than the brain. And the interesting thing about these neuroreceptors, these thinking receptors, as we could call them, in the heart, they're located deep in the heart where the heart valves are. And it's actually the heart valves that open and close that send blood throughout the body. So when we think with our heart, we're actually we're actually controlling our blood flow, which a lot of people don't know. So when we could think with our heart, we could send more blood throughout our body and we could actually keep our body more in balance. And this is a natural reaction of the heart. So it's basically holding emotions, and it's really giving yourself the time to process instead of, oh my goodness, this or that. It's that, okay, let me think about this. The first question to ask yourself is, am I in imminent danger? If you are, then anything else I'm saying goes out the window because you have to act and run and save your life and do whatever you can. But that's 99.9% of the time, we're not in danger. We're just sitting with an emotion that we don't feel comfortable with, and we distract ourselves from that by going into fight, flight, or freeze and having the stress hormones and not really being responsible for our emotions. But if we could sit with that, even if we can't come up with an answer, but take the time to sit with ourselves and with our heart and really connect to our heart and say, what's going on here? You know, why am I afraid to get up in front of a French speaking Toastmasters club and give a speech? And I came to the conclusion that I didn't want to look like I was less than or not an expert. You
Right.
know, I didn't want to feel this, but yet it's important for my growth as a French speaker to be able to practice my French. And if I don't practice it and talk to anybody or give a speech or answer a question in French, I'm never going to get any place. So I had to sit with that emotion and say, what's behind this? And then how could I tackle this? What are the steps? And it may be a small step. And then it also could have been, well, maybe I don't really want to do it. Maybe somebody else thinks that I should do this. And at that point, then I have to have the courage to say, I don't want to do this. Like being at a party, it may be something that you don't really want to do or go to. And to really have the courage to admit to yourself, I don't want to be here. Or to politely say to the host, I can't make it tonight. You know, it's not something that I really can do at this time for X, Y, and Z. You could be polite about it. But the point is not to make up an excuse for it, you know,
Mhm.
to be honest with yourself. And honesty comes from our heart because our heart is our inner knowing, it's the seat of our soul. It's
Mhm.
also our intuition, which maybe in another episode we could talk about intuition, but it's really being true to yourself. And if you're not true to yourself, eventually you're going to develop a physical illness or disease because you're turning your body against itself, against what it naturally needs to do, against getting all that blood and nutrients out to the cells, to the organs of the body. And it's a pretty amazing thing when you think about it. It's quite a miracle when you think about what the heart could do. And yet, on a daily basis, we don't really utilize our heart, even for thinking. We've been conditioned to use our brain to think. And sometimes, you know, it's like my mother used to tell me sometimes
Yeah.
when you think, you get yourself into trouble. And it's true because we're using the
Yep.
lower part
Yep.
of our brain. We're not really being rational. We're making a snap judgment about things.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're at the top of the half hour, and we are going to wrap this thing up. I wanted to show. So, she is the author. Teresa Palmer is the author of Heal Your Heart from Within. And I just want to show you the book. You can see it. And this is everything that we're talking about. We're talking about heal your heart from within and live a healthier life, and it all starts from just that is looking inward to become outwardly healed. And so, Teresa, what are your closing thoughts for this session?
My closing thoughts are that everything happens from within us. It starts with us and it finishes with us. So we need to have the awareness and take the responsibility for ourselves. for what we do on not only a daily basis, but how we react to things. Once we start recognizing that we're really ultimate, everything starts and stops with us. It's kind of like the buck starts with us and the buck stops with us. So we need to own it and acknowledge ourselves.
Awesome, awesome. This is a great session. We're going to tackle some more
Of
because
course.
there's so much more to talk about in regards to this. I think you tapped on a little bit of egos in there as to why we feel some of the way we feel. And so we're going to hold that for our next session. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for chiming in today and listening in. We really appreciate you. We pray that what we've talked about really has been a blessing to you and it has helped you live a more healthier life. Again, the book is Heal Your Heart from Within. And we have been with Teresa Palmer today, and we will be back for more. So stay tuned. We're out.